Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky. Welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Thank you very much. And whether you're listening on TorahAnytime.com or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, we're so happy to have you along. The sponsorship this week, I don't know if I can say bittersweet. It's sort of, I guess it's sort of bitter. So I'll read you the dedication. If I get some of the names wrong, I hope you'll forgive me. The shir is sponsored by Jason Letterman, Yitzhak Litvinchik, Adam Markowitz, Jason Moore, Shalom Silbermans, Reuven Schnitzer, and David Zisu. Leiloi Nishmas Rabbi Leib Shmuel ben David, who is Rabbi Leib Jaeger, who was beloved by hundreds of Talmidim and whose lives he impacted in an extremely profound way. He wore his simchas hachaim on his face constantly, and his keen intellect and positive outlook were instantly recognizable by everyone he met. His vibrant personality and boundless energy for Torah and Gemilas Chasadim were a constant inspiration to those around him. Rabbi Jaeger was a special neshama who passed away on Rosh Hashanah. This really has a very personal touch for me. I had the schus of knowing Rabbi Jaeger. We taught together. He also grew up on Long Island and went to Hank. We shared a Rabbi Whale, and he was so warm and so caring. In his last years, he was the mashgiach in the Jerusalem Gardens Hotel, and we would sometimes go and just visit with him and just schmooze with him. And the stories he used to tell us about kashrus and Eretz Yisrael and what has to be done in order to maintain those standards. It was just, he just had so much Yiras Shamayim. And as it says, he had such a smile on his face and he had such love for people, especially his Talmidim. And I remember when we used to teach together, he would go 100 miles out of his way for any Talmud. And that was just, he was just such an incredible person. And I once heard Rabbi Bowman say about another powerful mashpia who died young. He used to say that sometimes the candles that burn the brightest burn out faster. And he was such a bright candle. And it's a schus for me to be able to dedicate this podcast to his memory. And it should be a schus for him and for his family. And it's just a terrible tragedy. You know, I guess we could tie this in. This is Parashas Toldos. I mentioned that he was a mashgiach. He said that when he first took over the hotel, so he had to, wash the vegetables. So he asked for this cleaner, and they had a bottle of this cleaner. He says, "That's good. I need like another 10 cases of this." And they were like, "Well, the other mashgiach never did that." He goes, "I'm sure that he did not." And he says, to get everything up to 100%, he says, is a tremendous amount of work. There's a tremendous emphasis. Toldos is generations. It's talking about Yitzchak giving birth to Yaakov and Esau. And so we finally have introduced to all of the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Eila Toldos, Yitzchak ben Avraham Holidas Yitzchak. You have Avraham and Yitzchak, and then they give birth to Yaakov. So everybody's in, all three players are here. Everything's all lined up. Rivka is having unusual pain, and she goes to Yeshua Shem Ve'ever and asks him what's going on. They say, Shnei goyim bevitneich. You have two nations in your womb. But it's written Geim. Says Rashi, two great ones are inside of you. It's Yaakov and Esau. Who is this prophecy referring to? Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and the Roman Emperor Antoninus. The Roman Empire is, of course, descended from Rome, Edom, and obviously Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is descended from Yaakov, the Jewish people. And these two leaders had a relationship. Two of them worked together. The Gemara tells us it's because when they were children, their mothers switched the babies. And when Rebbe's mother nursed Antoninus, that gave him the ability to be able to have more of a bent towards spirituality. And he used to learn with Rebbe, and that this very special relationship was that moment. It's referring to the two of them. Why? Because the two of them studied Torah, because the two of them were world leaders. The two of them were great because it never left from their table lettuce or radishes, even in the best, and even the cold weather, the warm weather, they always had all the vegetables on their table. And that is the prophecy for all of the generations, that these two people had all the vegetables on their table regardless of the season. Okay, so let's get to the story where they take the brachas. The Jewish people take the brachas. The Vilna Gaon says all of Klal Yisrael's history was involved in that story of Yaakov Avinu taking the brachas. Esau comes in from the field, he's hungry, and he sees Yaakov is cooking a stew, and he says, Tein li me'adam adam hazeh. Give me from this red stuff. And that's the reason he's called Edom. Says Rashi, Yaakov was cooking red lentils, and that's why it was red, and that's the reason that Esau is called red. I assume if he was making cream of broccoli soup, he would have been called green. I guess if it was a cauliflower soup, he'd be called white. I suppose if it was a butternut squash soup, he'd be called orange. He apparently is called red because he was cooking a red soup. Yeah. And continues Rashi, why was he cooking a red soup? He was cooking lentils because Abraham had died. Abraham died 5 years early, says Rashi, because everybody was supposed to live to 180. Yitzchak lived to 180. Yaakov lived to 147. But Rashi says he lost 33 years because of that little speech he gave to Paro. And Abraham lived to 175. He should have lived to 180, but he died early, so he shouldn't see Esau go off the derech because he wanted to die where he saw everything was good. Yishmael did tshuva. He saw Yitzchak married with children. Everything was good, right? So go out on a high, and happy ending in Jewish history usually lasts, about 5 years. That's about it. When some other tremendous difficulty pops up, but okay, we had Abraham passes away, and so Yaakov was preparing the Sudas Havara, the special meal that you bring to the mourner. He brings him, he's making lentils. And Rashi says, why lentils? Follow this. Lentils are round and they remind you of the circle of life. People are born and people die. That certainly was last week's Parsha Sarah. Starts with Sarah dying. It ends with Avraham dying. Yitzchak gets married. Avraham gets remarried. There's a circle. And the other thing is it has no opening because the mourner doesn't speak. The mourner doesn't have words. So says Rashi, he was cooking lentils because lentils are round and lentils don't have an opening, and that's the reason that mourners today eat eggs. Because they're round and they don't have an opening. Let's follow this again. He was cooking lentils because lentils are round and lentils don't have an opening, and that's why we eat eggs. You see the problem? I asked this to a group once. Why then don't we give them lentils? And they said, because nobody likes lentils. Now, apparently this is not true. I have seen restaurants where they serve lentil soup. And evidently this is certainly acceptable in certain societies to eat lentil soup. But That's what they had. They had lentils. And we eat eggs. I sat Shiva in America, and they keep bringing bagels. Now, I understand bagels are round, but they have an opening. If anything, you should bring bialys. They don't have, I live in Israel, we don't have bialys here. Yeah, it's like a bagel, and we sort of filled it in a little bit. You could get a bagel where you fill in the middle, and that's called a roll. Not quite the same thing. But I guess the bagel is round, so they bring bagels. When my father passed away, that week I ate more bagels than I can possibly even imagine. I could not look at a bagel for the rest of the year. It was just too traumatic. I got over it. Oh, Hashem. But this is so strange. You know why Edom is called Edom? Because he was cooking lentils. And why was he cooking lentils? Because they're round, they don't have an opening, and that's why we eat eggs. Wait, we're not done. Yitzchak. Yitzchak, at this point, is considered dead. We know this because Hashem refers, he says to Yaakov, Elokei Yitzchak. And you can only say Elokei when someone's dead, not when they're still alive. And Yitzchak was blind. He was a living korban. He was so out of this world. And Yitzchak realizes he's coming towards the end of his life. He wasn't, but he get nervous. You get nervous when you're near the time when your mother died, when your father died, and he was near the time when his mother passed away. So he calls in Esau, his oldest son, and he says to him, I'm going to give you the brachas. First, bring me matamim, tasty food. Bring me something yummy to eat, and then I'll give you the bracha. And so Esau goes out to prepare matamim. In the meantime, Rivka hears the conversation, tells Yitzchak, listen to me, I'm a Navi. I'm going to tell you what to do here. You're going to dress up like your brother Esau, and you're going to bring your father matamim, and I'm going to prepare matamim like I know he likes. Yummy, tasty food. And he brings it in, and he tastes it. And Rashi says he tastes all the tastes in the world. And he calls in, so he looks at Yaakov, and he gives him all the brachas. And afterwards, when Esau comes in, he couldn't see. He says, who are you? He says, I'm Esau. He says, then who is that? He goes, must have been Yaakov. He says, what can I do? I already ate from all of his matamim. I ate from his yummy food, and I gave him the bracha. Now, why is Yitzchak apparently centering all this around yummy food? There's this idea, people say it in the name of the stipler. I spoke to someone who evidently was close to the stipler, and he says the story never happened. I don't know if it did or it didn't. Sometimes it doesn't matter whether the story actually happened or not. Sometimes the story has a life of its own. This person went, and he says he had trouble getting a shidduch for his daughter. So the stipler said, did you make a kiddush? He says, no. He says, oh, too bad, you missed out on all those brachas. In my neighborhood, there was a seminary for Bali Tshuva called Neve Yerushalayim, and every now and then a girl used to make herself a kiddush on Shabbos to get all those brachas because she was looking for a shidduch, and her parents, as you can imagine, did not make her a kiddush. So a guy says to me once, he knew the story, and he says, what am I making a kiddush for? To get all the brachas? I have to call up everybody to invite them to the kiddush anyway, so I'll just call them up and say, I had a baby girl, and they'll give me the bracha, and I don't have to make a kiddush. So I said, you see from the story of Yitzchak, you get a better bracha when you give people matamim. Give somebody yummy food, you're going to get a better bracha than if you just call them up and tell them something and they say, oh, okay, mazel tov, You want a yummy bracha. But okay, that's for us. Yitzchak, who was so ruchani, so spiritual, so out of this world that he was already considered not even alive in this world, this is what he's worried about. When Rivka sees him the first time, she falls off the camel in awe. This fellow is so out of this world. And he wants matamim. He wants yummy, tasty food. We need a little explanation of what's going on over here. And the answer is, I probably told the story already, but it's one of my favorite stories. I was at a Encounter conference in Cape Town, South Africa, and I was on a panel with a Catholic teacher, a Muslim teacher, myself, and a secular Jewish teacher, and they were asking questions about religion. And this one kid asked the Muslim teacher, as a Muslim teacher in a Jewish school, did you ever have any bad experiences? And she said, yes. One time a girl came over and offered me something to eat, and I said, I can't, I'm fasting. She goes, but you were fasting last week. Says, yes, last week, this week, for another 2 weeks. It's Ramadan, and we fast for a whole month. And the girl said, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. And I couldn't believe that a Jewish girl couldn't have respect for somebody else's religion. Well, you can imagine the tension in the room. I felt like I had to do something. I said, I want to say something in this young lady's defense. She wasn't attacking a religion. It's just impossible for a Jew to conceive of fasting for a month. It goes against everything we stand for as a people. What we stand for as a people is eating. That's what we do. Jews eat. Yeah? I remember Jackie Mason once did this routine. He says, you'll know right away at the end of the show who's a Jew and who's a Gentile. Every Gentile will say the same thing. You have a drink? You want to have a drink? Let's go have a drink. How about you? Had a drink? Let's go have a drink. Every Jew will say the same thing. Did you eat yet? I ate. I didn't have cake. I didn't have cake. I have a coffee. I have a cake and coffee. Jews eat. That's what we do. I found at least 3 places in the Chassam Sofer where he brings down certain foods we eat on certain occasions and why. And the fact is that every holiday is associated with a food. On Pesach, obviously we eat matzah. If you gebrach, matzah brai, matzah balls, this is part of the holiday. If you don't gebrach, then I don't even know why you're still Jewish. I'm not taking anyone's customs, God forbid. It's just, I can't even conceive of Pesach without matzah brai. Anyway, Shavuos is cheesecake. Yeah. Rosh Hashanah is the apple and honey. Tisha B'Av. I remember I asked once, Tisha B'Av, they said, the egg with the ashes. I said, even on a fast day, we have a food associated with it. We just eat. Because food is, as somebody pointed out to me years ago, the area of halacha that has the most halachas associated with it is Shabbos. The next area that has the most halachas associated with it is kashrus. All the different laws of kashrus. Which means that eating has within it the greatest potential for holiness. That's why there are so many laws associated with it. When we eat, we're able to take the power of that food to be able to use it in a positive way. The Sfas Emes says, when they came into Eretz Yisrael, they found these enormous fruits. He says, why were the fruits so big? He says, because when you eat, there's 2 parts to the eating. One is the physical sustenance, and the other one is the spiritual sustenance. And the pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away the spirituality from the Canaanim who were there. Eov died. There was nothing to protect them. And so they had to have much larger fruits to sustain them because the spiritual energy wasn't there. The more spiritual the fruit and the food, the greater is the potential for it. And that's why there are some fruit that have a peel, which you have to remove, citrus fruits. There are some fruits that have a core, like an apple. There are some fruits that have a pit, like a date. The fruit that is seen as having the most psoilus and the least amount of fruit is a pomegranate. And that's why it says the worst Jew is like a pomegranate, because even though there's so much you have to peel away, there's all those little dots of sweetness. And the fruit that is closest to spirituality is the fig, because except for the stem, which of course if you did Mishnayos Uksin is not actually part of the fruit, The entire thing is edible. The seeds, the flesh, the peel, right? Everything about it is edible. There's a power to eating. And that's why almost everything we do in Judaism is associated with a meal. You have a bris, there's a meal. As we saw in Parshas Vayera. You have a pidyon ben, there's a meal. And the Chazal say that's worth dozens of fast days if you eat the Suda at a pidyon ben. Everything's a Sudas mitzvah. A tzaddik only eats it at Sudas mitzvah. Sitting down to eat a meal. This lovely couple who became religious, and they always tell people, they came to our house for Shabbos, and that's the reason they became religious. And they tell over the Shabbos, and the one thing they say is, I never saw so much eating before. Now, that's not just because of us. That's the average Jew. Appreciate this. Non-Jews have two big meals, Thanksgiving and Xmas. That's it. And they go to the dining room, they take out their china, and they have a Suda. And there's so much being written about it. How do you get through Thanksgiving? How do you manage? How do you handle all this food? How do you handle all the cooking? You got to make a turkey and stuffing and sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes and an apple pie and cranberries, We call that every Friday night. What they call Thanksgiving, we call it every Friday night. And all the angst that they go through, we do that every week. We have Thanksgiving every single week, only we have two meals. We have Thanksgiving and then we have another Thanksgiving every single week. And then you wonder why type 2 diabetes is such a high occurrence in the Jewish community. We eat, and there's so much associated with it. Because within that eating, there's so much potential to take that food and turn it into ruchnius. So Yitzchak says, I'm giving the brachas of the world. I have to see whoever I give the brachas to can make matamim, can figure out how to find the power that's in the physicality and how to use it in a positive way. That all the tastes are there. He tasted everything in those tastes. There's only one other case where we find that. That's called by the mun. It tastes like whatever you wanted it to taste like. The Gemara in Brachos lists various Amoraim who used to eat the Peris Guinnessor, which were these unusually sweet fruit. And they fermented on the vine. So they were somewhat intoxicating. And it says they would eat these until they were going out of their mind from the power of these fruit. I once heard Moshe Shapiro explain, because of the Tamei Torah. To get the taste of Torah, you have to appreciate taste. Shivim Panim LaTorah. Kadosh Baruch Hu created fruit. He could have made one fruit, a tasty fruit. I know everyone talks about summer fruits. To me, it's I find there's, at least here in Israel, winter fruit is such a different experience. They just, I was able to find in the store custard fruit. It's this sort of green, scaly fruit with these gigantic black pits. But when it gets soft, it's literally like custard. You cut it in half, you can eat it out with a spoon. So sweet and creamy. And persimmons and kiwis and pineapple and pomegranates and pomelo and oranges and clementines and grapefruits and the array of fruit that's available. And we only have a small version of it. Fun fact, there are hundreds of types of apples. Most of us are familiar with Red Delicious, Macintosh, Golden Delicious, maybe Rome Beauty, a few other types. There are hundreds of types of apples, but they have not been commercialized because they don't last very long, and they have a tendency to go bad fast. So they've worked with trees. They almost never plant a tree commercially from a seed because you don't know what you're going to get. They always keep crossbreeding trees till they get just the fruit that they want, and then they only take stems from that tree and grow new trees. gold, red delicious apples are basically shaped like a cube, and they have a very long shelf life. And but there's a farm in upstate New York, hundreds of types of apples. There are some apples, he said, that are so sweet you can't believe it. I read once that there are fruit tours. There's certain fruit that you just can't export because they don't have the shelf life. People travel around the world to taste these different types of fruit. The power of the fruit, the power of the sweetness of these various tastes. We take them in and we use it to appreciate Torah. We take the food and we use it to be able to achieve ruchnius, to be able to achieve spirituality. Rebbe and Antoninus knew how to be able to take the fruit, and as some of the Farshim point out, those that grow above ground and those that go below ground, because they represent the revealed Torah and the hidden Torah. Why was Yaakov cooking? Rivka should be doing the cooking. He was cooking because he was making the Sudas Havrah to bring to his father. And Rashi says, why lentils? Because they're round and they don't have an opening. That's why we eat eggs. Why? Because it doesn't matter whether it's lentils or whether it's eggs. He wasn't cooking lentils. He was cooking something that was round and didn't have an opening. And whether it's lentils or whether it's eggs doesn't make a difference. It's what I'm cooking, what the meaning of the food is. Esau comes in and he looks in the pot and he says, looks good, smells good, give me some of this red stuff. And Yaakov looks at him and says, aren't you wondering why I'm cooking? Maybe you should look in the pot and say, what's he cooking? Why is it red? Lentils. Why would he make lentils? Oh, lentils are round. Lentils don't have an opening. That's what you would give to a mourner. It could be Zayda died. I better run in and see Tata and give him a Menachem Ovel. All he looked at was the external. There was no meaning to it. Looks good, smells good, tastes good. Give me them that red stuff. And that's why he's called Edom. Because all he looked at was the way the food tasted and not what the meaning of the food was. Yitzchak, he was totally spiritual, but he understood that matamim, those tastes, can help us understand what Judaism is all about, what Torah is all about, give me a different perspective on life. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it. Gemara Yerushalmi says Rabbi Yehuda used to save up money to buy every new fruit that came out, to be able to get those tastes, to get that appreciation. Food is there for us to use to elevate us and elevate this world. So how appropriate Rabbi Jaeger spent his last years as a mashgiach, making sure that the food that people ate was of a spiritual nature. I don't know about anybody else, but this podcast makes me hungry. I'm going to go eat something. And we should all learn the power that lies inside of the food. Take a moment to appreciate it. Peel a clementina, look at it, smell it, taste it, hold it in your mouth, savor it, enjoy it. It's something that's special, something to enjoy. And that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, go to RabbiOrlofsky.com. You know the drill. Yeah, you can add comments, see my upcoming schedule, contact me directly. If you want to sponsor an episode, go to RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast. My name is David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.